For myself, it all started in the time where a lot of manufacturers created their own machines for customers to mainly play with. Yes, with some of them you could also work, but that was far behind the possibilities what you can do today with them. It was likewise a time where the nowadays huge companies started to raise and made their first steps in the home video market. Besides a lot of American businesses, especially the Japanese companies grew and showed their technical skills to the world market. Two of them were none less than the famous brands Nintendo and Sega, two visionary giants of the industry, which entered the home console market. But also other studios from Japan, which mostly create arcade machines, like Capcom, Namco and Konami for example, reached a wider audience. In that time my first consciously experiences in gaming started to grow up. Of course I had seen some old wooden consoles from former giant Atari and several other gaming machines, but the Nintendo Entertainment System, also known as the Family Computer, aka Famicom in Japan, was one of the first home consoles I really admired, and the two Italian brothers from Japan got introduced to my future gaming life. All around the world the people, especially kids, enjoyed their adventures and hundreds of other games as well. Without calling the NES my own, at least I could enjoy it at my best friend's house. I still call him a friend, but he has no time anymore to play games. But his younger brother, who has the same age as my own brother, got also hooked up with gaming. I still play with both of them from time to time, and it's exciting we all made it through the improvement of gaming together. It was also the time where I got introduced to the mighty Amiga 500 system, one of the best gaming devices ever created back then. Games like North and South, A10, Tank Killer or Defender of the Crown were just a few of them. Especially Defender of the Crown was graphically one of the most stunning creations ever made on the Amiga version. And the Amiga version, where it was initially created, easily overtopped the other versions on every other system. The artwork and design as well as the sprites are phenomenal even today. Of course, the weaker Commodore version, the C64 8-bit home computer, was also very famous due that time, and a lot of gamers started their enthusiasm for digital art during these times. The Schneider CPC with green monitor, also known as the Amstrad CPC, was also one of my very first own home computer systems. I should mention my first handheld moment as well. While playing outside while I visited my grandmother and met a boy on a playground with a mini computer in his hands. To understand, in these times there were hundreds of mini handhelds, cheap in production and with mostly just one game on it. But this device was much bigger than everything I saw before, and I approached him and asked what device he has. He told me it's called the Game Boy. He asked me if I want to give it a try. Sure, I wanted to try, because not at least my favorite comic heroes had their first game I got in contact with, the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. For the rest of the world, they were the Ninja Turtles. But ninjas were bad in Germany back then, so the turtles became heroes. After playing a bit, I ran back to my grandmother's home and annoyed my parents with the idea to get a Game Boy as well, as soon as possible. But damn, it was summer. Easter was already gone, and to the birthday it was way too long. Especially, the time goes by very slowly for a kid. Every one of you will remember that. So it felt like eternity until my first own device, the Nintendo Game Boy, arrived at my birthday. With Tetris, Spider-Man and, of course, the Turtles. The very first game I've bought myself. If you want to have a look on it today, I recommend to give the Cowabunga collection, available on every platform, a try. A beautiful collection, by the way. Back to the home console market. I missed or can't deliberately remember the Master System from Sega, which was the equivalent to the NES. The mighty Sega home market just got introduced to me with the Sega Mega Drive, also known as the Sega Genesis. I loved this machine so much, even I didn't own one myself. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, also known as the Super Famicom, was my very first own and one of my favorite consoles of all time. But in a lot of aspects I preferred the more adult version of the Genesis. One of the best examples here is the famous Robocop vs Terminator game. Although both versions looked impressive at that time, but the Sega version was the address to be. The adult and brutal setting fitted much better to Paul Verhoeven's template. Overall, Sega had more adult games to offer, while the SNES, or in this case the Super Family Computer, better fits as a description, was overall more, yes, family friendly. I need to add that this was also a time where going out and playing outside was the peak of being a kid. Yes, gaming was great and fantastic, but it was no comparison to have fun outside with your friends. And also, the games weren't that impressive in the first place. I can really imagine how gaming today will have an effect on kids due to their realistic graphics and will soak them more into the immersive created worlds. This wasn't an opportunity back then. I want to tell you something about gaming in general back in the days, especially during these early times. Guess what? No brands were essential for having fun, no stupid gatekeeping like it is today, where small-minded players try to defend huge million-dollar companies as they would belong to them. We just didn't care about what name was stamped on the console or home computer. It was important what you could see on your color TV screen. That's it, that easy. Don't get me wrong, of course Sega and Nintendo had their disputes and the rivalry was important for the competition. But we consumers, at least the ones I knew personally, didn't care about brands, trademarks and labels. We only were seeking for fun and enjoyed whatever game on whatever device. Sounds pretty easy, right?
Wrong.
In this case, you're wrong, Arnie. Yes, it's still that easy, and I'm glad that there are still a lot of gamers out there seeing it straight away today.
Had enough?
So let's get back to the topic, the peak of progress in games. For myself, the biggest evolution in gaming started then for me, and it was never topped. Even not today. The jump into the future when 16-bit 2D games turned into 32-bit 3D games. I mean the real 3D. I will never forget standing in a local media store and seeing Ridge Racer for the very first time on a little TV screen. This looked so impressive for me and I thought it was real. Of course I played Ridge Racer just a year ago and was laughing all the way with the reference to how I saw it as a kid. But I'm still admiring the PSX visuals. The PSX was the very first console I've bought with my own money. Without my confirmation where I got some money, it couldn't be possible at all, because Sony's first entry on the market was anything than cheap. I've paid about 580 DM Deutschmark. I had to buy my first television as well. It was a small Hitachi TV and I had it until I was 18 years old. No huge flat screen like today. A small box with one speaker in the middle and all the necessary ports to plug in my console. I remember how impressed I was that you could open the lid of the console and put in your audio CDs, so you could listen to your music while playing a game. That was tech from beyond. I will also never forget the tech demos Sony delivered with the bundle. The famous T-Rex 3D model and the Manta Ray. Impressive, I can tell you. First you saw Jurassic Park in the cinema, and then you see a completely polygon-created T-Rex in movement on your home console. What a quantum leap, fellow gamers. But not only Sony was impressive, Sega was still there and delivered the Saturn with a lot of arcade games ported to a home console. Beautiful machine with one of the most iconic games ever. Later on, the N64 from Nintendo dropped with many fantastic games. I know there were a lot and I can't describe the feeling playing a Mario game in full 3D for the first time. That blew us away. But it wasn't the Mario games, the Turok franchise, which got us hooked to that console day for day. It was nothing less than the famous GoldenEye 007. Oh boy, I can remember all of the countless hours we spent at a friend's house, sometimes stoned, and played the hell out of it on 4-player split screen. I remember one incident with Rare's Champ. A friend of us delayed for our session, so we went into the menu before starting and put his handicap to max and ours to lowest. So he could fire an RPG directly in our faces and we could survive, while he dropped dead instantly, getting a hit from a pistol. The preparations were made and the session began after his arrival. After a period of time where he got understandable upset with everything, he left the friend's house in anger. After we confessed the facts, it made it even worse. No fun. He wasn't seen again after that incident for the sessions. I'm still laughing about it. I know it wasn't kind, but he also had no frustration tolerance back then. I remember something similar on the C64 at a friend's house. We played North and South there, and every time my army was on the winning leap, my troops started to retreat and I lost almost every match. After the game session he told me that there are buttons on the keyboard which make your troops retreat. I didn't know that, and so he used his knowledge to win the fight. Later, when he visited me and we started to play one of my favorite games on the SNES, Turtles in Time, I made the phrase "Revenge is best served cold" become true. While he wasn't aware, I was sitting in front of the controller ports and plugged out his 2-player controller. But only as far that it looks that it is still connected. The contact to the interface was lost. So when we proceeded with the level with the prehistoric setting, he got badly beaten up by the Foot Clan and couldn't do anything. I explained him that these were specific enemies which can stun you and you can't do anything about it. After he went down, I confessed my trick and he punched me on the shoulder. We laughed then. Yes, that were great couch potato times, even we sat on the floor. My next and one of my best consoles ever was the mighty Sega Dreamcast. I loved that device so much. Most of my games were Japanese and logically in Japanese. That worked for most of the arcade and simple games, and you were forced to try out to get the ruler of the menu. It was great to have games months, in some cases even years before the European release. Don't mention the games which never made it to the West. But one game got us almost mad. It was Resident Evil Code Veronica. The first 3D made Resident Evil without pre-rendered backgrounds, like the original ones. The game was playable in Japanese and mostly could be figured out due to the practical knowledge in gaming over the years. But when we entered the mandatory picture riddle, we got stuck. Damn! We managed all Resident Evil games and other horror survival games like Silent Hill. But here we met our maker. We tried so much out and couldn't proceed from here. We even tried methods no dev ever implemented in a game ever. Our fantasy was wild and I still think about what great games could become reality with these ideas. But for Veronica, it wasn't the spot we needed to go. I was so desperate, I wanted to meet a Japanese person at the local train station and pay him money to translate for us. Of course no one would ever do that. Follow youngsters to playing interpreter. And even the Dreamcast was capable of getting into the internet, we hadn't it to make it use for us. Germany was like today a bit backwards. So the only solutions would be to solve it yourself or hope for an article about it in a magazine. We never made it with the Japanese version and played other games until the German version was released much later. Guess what? The riddle wasn't even close to our fantasies and it was really easy to initiate if you were able to read your task. Damn! But at least a nice experience about shaping your fantasy and learn to think in an abstract way. The Dreamcast was really one of a kind, and when I entered my military service, just a basic duty to be precise, I played a lot of games with my comrades. In single player I enjoyed Soldier of Fortune, how fitting, gell? With friends and comrades, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Virtua Tennis, Power Stone and a lot more. Quake 3 Arena and Unreal Tournament with bots because I started playing online much later. The Dreamcast was that good that I gave my PS2 to my brother as a present. Don't tell anyone, but the Dreamcast made things with me other consoles couldn't. Today I would feel bad about it, but back then it had to be done. When I've got Soul Calibur in Japanese, I also had a date on that day with my former girlfriend. I know she couldn't understand my passion for games, and if I told her I need to head home to test one of my most anticipated games ever, I knew she would never accept that a game is more important than her. Of course the game wasn't more important, but damn, it was brand new, and after smelling on the new booklet in the bus on the way home to her, I was hooked for the game, as I was when I was a young kid sniffing on the SNES booklet after buying a game. If I had explained that to her, it would have made it much worse, telling her enjoying smelling on a new booklet instead of her. So after a while, I told her I didn't feel comfortable and went home. Damn, I actually lied. I hate liars, by the way, and always took the hard way instead of telling untruth. But in this case, I become one myself for the sake of Soul fucking Calibur. But that wasn't the end. I also cut school lessons with some friend and some weed when Dead or Alive 2 arrived. Should I feel bad about it? No, of course not. It was one of the most impressive beat-em-ups ever made, and I would do it again. Is it okay to lie or cut lessons? Of course not. Don't do that at home, or at least don't get caught. Fun aside, I'm not proud of it, but for myself I can handle the consequences and would do it again if I was young today. And then the Xbox dropped. Halo was the holy grail of a first-person shooter and an excellent sci-fi game as well. Playing it co-op with friends or in split-screen PvP. Yes, the Master Chief revolutionized gaming in general. Graphics and controls, as well as the features like recharging energy, were state-of-the-art and a new era began. A long way looking back, playing Doom on a PC 368 at a friend's house or Wolfenstein or Rise of the Triad. I think this was the peak of couch potato gaming because the later consoles were that online capable that it was fun. I know a lot of my friends already played online in these times, but I was a real late bloomer. My first online game where I got really soaked into was Battlefield Bad Company on the Xbox 360. By the way, one of the best shooters ever made. Only topped by its own successor, Bad Company 2 later. I still think, and mentioned it before in other videos, that the 360 and the PS3 era was the peak of AAA gaming, especially competitive multiplayer games. Of course we were young and fit and the will to win was there. Today I prefer more co-op games in general and having less stress while reaching for the win. In Battlefield Bad Company 2 I had my most impressive round ever in any video game, besides the fact that it took me weeks to finish Ninja Gaiden 2. Yes, we had a lot of good rounds, and you other Battlefield players as well, well known as the Battlefield moments. But this one was at least my best, not only about the points and kills, but everything that happened in that round. I will never forget that, and to this day I regret that I had no possibility to record that specific round. We started on Atacama Desert as defenders in the well-beloved Rush mode. Yes, we loved that mode more than any other. This game was really the peak for me of the franchise. Even Battlefield 4 was my most played one later. Bad Company 2 was famous for test out and do what you want. So we took a quad and rushed to the attacker's base. Yes, it was possible to do that back then. Not kind, but very effective, if the enemies weren't that good. So we defeated some soldiers there, and then, when the Hind, the only helicopter in that round, spawned, we stole it. My friend, the one I told you before with the NES and Amiga, flew that thing. He was a hell of a pilot, the best I knew in that time. Mostly we took the Apache and made the enemies hate us. It was hard to drop a good helicopter team. We knew both sides. being that good but also getting wasted by enemy helicopters, which literally obliterate our whole team. There was no Stinger at that time and ordnance weapons didn't make that much damage. Also the crew had the ability to land in a hidden spot and repair the chopper. So any good team was hard to drop. We also had rounds where a good enemy crew survived the whole match. Even half of our team tried to get rid of them. Your best luck was to hit it by accident with a rocket or to hit the vehicle with the marker, and then a ground rocket had the ability to drag it down, similar to a heat seeker. But believe me, it was hard to hit one in the air when he's moving all the time and far away. And the crew had the chance to get rid of it due to the flares, at least once in a while, and then recharging. This luck and fortune should become our benefit in that round. So we flew back to our team to support them, and they supported us. The good thing was that the only AA guns were in our main bases as the defenders. Now we had the chopper and the guns on our side. That was a perfect start and half of the rent. Now the dirty work started. While my friend only could fly that thing because the Hind only had his main gun boarded by the gunner, which was myself, instead of having rocket pods like the AH-64, I needed to make all of the kills. He was only flying and repairing. I still admire his skill and his patience. As you can imagine, I made a lot of kills. The mighty autocannon of the Hind only needed a few hits to get a kill, or a direct hit was an instant one. Of course the enemies tried to get to our AA guns to shoot us down, and of course they almost made it a few times. It was a combination of skill and luck we had in this match. Everything was perfect. The teams were almost equal, so we played until the last position on the map. That means we didn't end the match early because the enemies ran out of tickets. We actually made it through the complete match without getting killed. I will never forget the stats: 104 kills and 0 deaths. My friend and me never reached that again, or got nearly that score when it comes to points. What an epic round for us, but also a moment to witness the toxic behavior of Envy gamers as well. They called us everything after the match, so that is not a modern phenomenon in general. Assholes were assholes like they are today. Nothing has changed. But of course, with social media, it's easier today to spread hate and resentments all over the world in real time. Believe me when I tell you that we often got our ass kicked by much better teams. Everyone playing Battlefield will make that experience once in a while. But we never insulted other players. Yes, we cursed and sweared for us, but never messaged bad words to our enemies. We had always respect against them. That really got worse today. That's why I don't like to play competitive in general. I'm too old to mess around with low-minded gamers and being the scapegoat for their losses. While the 360 PS3 era was the peak in a lot of points, it never felt the same after that. When the PS4 and the Xbox One were released, doldrums in gaming started for me. While I loved the 360, I didn't like the Xbox One at all and decided to buy an PS4, which was the better option for me. But hell no, what a disappointment. No games at all, at least for my taste. No system seller or beloved franchise. And if, they managed to waste it like the terrible Killzone crap game. Except of some beautiful and innovative indie games, there was literally nothing for me to explore. Due to the costs, I wasn't willing to pay for 3 consoles to have a wider range of games. And then the devs and publishers started to milking the cash cow. The wave of remaster and remakes started its crusade on all platforms. What a time to be a gamer. A lot of former giants of AAA devs became uninspired cash grab stations. That was a huge letdown for me. Yes, of course there were some great games here and there, but the peak, like in the generation before, where the studios tried to top each other with new tech and improvements in gaming, was clearly over. Very less developers stood great and delivered the known quality. A lot of the big ones were afraid to try things out, they wanted to be safe and sure, and their products just became mediocre and meaningless products. Of course, this was not bound to gaming alone. Also in every other section of industry and commerce, it was the same. At least at the end of the PS4 lifespan, they dropped some incredibly good titles. But for the next generation I wasn't really excited and didn't know what to get. Then the artificial shortage of goods was a byproduct of the result of the worldwide regression. Not that the COVID pandemic was the one and only reason, but a lot of people in the industry used the chaos to make profit out of it. Yes, typical human behavior. Instead of helping and staying together, some try to make money out of the misery of others. I don't need to say that this is not correct, and I hope these people will fail someday with their attitude. So the new consoles were overpriced and disgusting scalpers took their chance to make money. And yes, the consumers are guilty too. Why the hell should I pay a single cent over the market value? Yes, that's it. I can make wrong or bad decisions, but I'm not that dumb at all. So I waited a bit. And then, even the pandemic and the regression wasn't over, I made a great deal. I jumped back to PC and I think that was the best decision I made in gaming. When I saw what the three big players, Nintendo, Microsoft and Sony did, I made the right choice. Again, no interesting games. A little invoice with them. Sony only drops one lousy and boring third-person open-world adventure after another, or brings millions of remakes and remasters. Nintendo still heads for last-gen tech, with most of the games look like they want to appease kindergarten. And of course, looking at the Switch 2 right now, remasters and remakes. And Microsoft, yes, the most valuable company of all with more money than, doesn't matter. They perfectly fucked the chief with the last game and let so many projects die from scratch. Flat rate gaming at its best, yeehaw! And of course, also remaster and remakes. So I'm really glad that I changed my perspective. No extra money for online gaming, most games of all, for the best price of all, with the best tech of all. Game jams which will never be released on consoles, whilst most of the Sony and Microsoft games will drop on PC anyway. But the absolute best are the insane and innovative ideas the indie devs deliver us even now as we speak. These devs are the modern heroes. Huge companies only have a look for their profit and not to the mission to bring joy and entertainment to the players. I quit talking about that because most of players will only see if they try it out for themselves. No need to convince people and open their eyes what can be possible. Don't get me wrong, I still like consoles, but what they have become is beyond their old shine, and if they won't change it, they can keep it. I'm sure consoles will vanish someday anyway. They are even small PCs right now. For myself, I need one machine where I can have the most offers and the widest variety of games, where I can decide what to enjoy, and I don't care which brand is on the device, I will go on and play everything. I will also never forget the endless times in gaming and what we got delivered. Standing in the arcades with dual-wielding pistols and going for the House of the Dead high score, sitting in a Jurassic Park slot machine and shooting dinosaurs, or just having fun with friends on Mario Party games. Yes, you can have that all even today. I think, like in the movies, the best stuff is already made. But we can wait. I really wish the companies will take more time to finish their product. I don't need 2 million Assassin's Creed games, the greed to have something new all the time. That's why stupid streaming services make money with shit all day long. People heading for new stuff, but don't really care what they are consuming. That's made for them. Watch and play and forget. Damn! Just buy a Man in Black device and enjoy one game and movie. If so, which movie and game would be yours? Let me know in the comments. But even with the downsides of modern gaming, I'm still excited where the gaming right is heading to. But I also feel the lack of movement in the industry. We will see. Some is good, some is bad. It will always be interesting. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.